Hi, it's Father Roderick, and since you all liked that video so much that I filmed last week, I figured, well, maybe I'll just do another vlog and show you around in already one of my favorite spots here in the vicinity of Wageningen, which is the Arboretum, which is basically a park with lots and lots of beautiful trees. And it's springtime. The sun is shining, skies are blue. What better day to show you around? So I'm just going to show you whatever catches my eye. What I love most about this time of the year are the colors. Look at this beautiful combination of a little bit of orange and then very soft green. Or look at this almost purple blue, these tiny flowers. And of course these are starting to bloom as well. This is literally an explosion of color. Yeah, this one here is even more gorgeous. It's this deep red color. It's almost impossible to catch the vibrancy of these colors on a simple phone. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I always take a lot of photos and post them on Instagram, and I love to play with foreground and background. Even though these lenses are very simple and very small, you can still play around from focusing on the background flowers and then to the foreground. Look at how beautiful that is. So on Instagram I'm always looking for a combination of composition and color, and here you see this big white flower and then the bulbs slightly blurry in the background. That makes for a nice composition. This is such a great place for a walk, or just to sit and read a book, listen to some music. Now here we're coming up to one of my favorite spots in this park, and that is the flowers all in bloom. It's absolutely glorious. The magnolias, you used to have cherry blossom over there. It is spectacular. Just look at this gorgeous white magnolia. Fantastic. And thankfully I've got a wide angle on my phone as well to capture sights like this one. Wow. So in photos you're always looking for contrast between the delicate and the rough, between bright and dark, between harsh structures and beautiful satin-like flowers. Also, if possible, wait for the sun. You see, there's such a difference between shadow and sunlight. And don't be afraid to shoot straight into the sun, because it will create this interesting effect where the sun is shining through the leaves of these flowers and create sometimes a golden rim around it that separates it from the background. And sometimes you have to really get close to get the best shots. Look at these. Wow. These almost look like if they're from a different planet. I mean, just look at it. Whoa. Awesome. Another trick you can try out is to get very, very close to the ground to get a different perspective. So this is what you get when you take the picture standing up from eye level. And now I haven't moved an inch. I've just brought the camera very, very close to the ground. You see the difference? Same tree, different perspective. If I were to post these photos on Instagram, which is actually something I'm planning to do, I would alternate between these wide shots and then get really close for the details. Like this, for instance. And of course, the advantage of video is that you can add movement to your composition to get even more a sense of context. And again, I'm pointing my camera just straight at the sun. Now, when you're filming alone, you don't have a cameraman or someone to hold a camera for you, and you still want to be walking in the shot while not holding the camera like I do right now. There's a trick that I've used a lot of times, what you need is a place to pose your mobile phone or your camera against, because of course a phone doesn't hold up without leaning against something. So I have found this thing here. So I'm going to put the camera against this thing, put it on wide angle, and then walk past it. So you've got this, and then I'm just gonna do this. And then I turn around and I do the same thing, walking towards you. The trick is to walk past the lens as much as you can. Now this was very quickly done, and of course the image was a little bit tilted, so it wasn't perfect. Normally I would take a little bit more time to make sure I have a straight horizon, or even better, I would not forget a little tripod so I can put it on the ground without having to find a stand in the environment. Now here you see the horizon, and of course I could just film the landscape, but it's much more interesting to have people in the foreground so you see what they are seeing through their eyes. Maybe I should put the camera a little bit higher, or you can also lower the camera just a bit, but then you often lose the background itself, or the view itself. So this would be the boring thing to do. Of course you see much more of the landscape, but it's less interesting because I see it in 3D. You only see it, you know, in a flat surface. By the way, there's also something about composition here. So if I step backward, now I have a much more interesting picture because I've got some people standing there, ideally also looking at the horizon. And another thing that we often do is we go for this. And you see the horizon is literally in the center of the image. That's not very interesting. So what you can do is tilt it down, put the end of the horizon or the horizon line on at about 1/3. That's already more interesting. But then you've got all this stuff here in the foreground, which is not very visually not very interesting. So instead, you can also tilt it upwards and get the horizon much lower. So the emphasis is on the sky. And then you just look for the best composition, maybe with some of these trees here. Something like this, maybe this. Just have these two trees on the left. See, that is much more interesting to look at than this. This is boring. This is slightly more interesting. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's better. Another tip, don't just look at the foreground, but also look at the background. Here, it's dark, it's a bit of a mess. The colors aren't very nice, but watch what happens when I turn around. And I take the same flowers, and now all of a sudden, I've got the background that is with these green colors. You've got the blue sky. Again, it's all about composition. Same exact flower, but you have this or this. Which one do you prefer? Another tip is sometimes you can use kind of existing framing. See how that tree kind of creates a frame for these people walking by. So one disadvantage of a horizontal video format, of course, is that you have a lot of vertical objects that you may want to film, and you can't because, well, if people are watching this horizontally, you can't just all of a sudden turn the camera around. What you can do then is to pan up or pan down to get the full picture. Your brain will actually create like a vertical picture. I will show you what I mean. So here we have the tree in the foreground, and then I can just pan up and show you everything. Or, even better, let's say if someone were to walk on that path in my direction, I could just pan down and do what they call a reveal, where you would see the person walk by. That, of course, requires a lot of good timing. Another example of how composition can make a huge difference. So over there, I see something interesting. See all these new leaves. I'm pretty sure I can turn this into an interesting picture. And for that, I've switched back to the regular lens, and I get real close to these young ones and then see a bit of the same color and the same structure in the background. You've got that nice sunshine, and I can even change the focus from the foreground to the background, or if this was for TV, I would probably change it from the background real slow to the foreground. It's a focus shift. I use it all the time. So I hope this video shows you that you really don't need an expensive camera. You can just take pictures with your phone. It's much more important what you do with the camera that you have. And I'm going to give you some more examples of shots that I like in terms of composition or color or both. You see my shadow right there? I'm going to show you how to do a crane shot. And just first look at my shadow. I'm going to do this movement. So I'm going to start low, and then I'm just going to keep the camera straight and rise. Now, watch what happens if I choose a foreground with that. For instance, these flowers. And then I'm going to do the same crane shot with these people walking by. You see? These are tricks that I use all the time when I'm out there filming my TV show by myself. I don't have a lot of equipment. Actually, I like to travel light. If it was possible, I would probably film the entire thing with my phone, but I can't. But you can do a lot with a bit of creativity. What I like here is this sea of blue, and then also the contrast with that old bark, you know, that very, very rough structure. I mean, this would be a nice shot. So this composition almost tells a story of this young, beautiful, tender flower seeking refuge or support from this old, weary tree with the gray and brown bark that has seen so many years. It's like, listen to me, I'll tell you what your life is all about. This is another interesting one, a juxtaposition of two contrasting colors. You've got the pink in the foreground and then a touch of blue in the background. And just to give you an idea, this is what it looks like from a distance, but you see a different color. This is all blue and green, and that is pink. So I move closer. I'm thinking this is interesting, and then you get all close. And if you change the lens and you focus on the foreground, you get this beautiful image. So you can probably tell that I love doing this, going for a walk and just look around, spot for interesting compositions, structures like this. This is amazing. Look at this. It's an enormous tree, and look at those shapes. And then also, look, this is what I meant with natural framing. See how these branches form a natural frame for the background. And if I change my position just slightly, it becomes even more interesting and gripping as an image. Look how these tentacles stretch out toward me. Now this is a gorgeous spot as well because there is a pond and there are some beautiful yellow flowers, and there is a reflection in the water, which is also very, very pretty. Just look at this. Isn't that amazing? Again, I'm going to do a focus shift, pulling back on this one and then focusing on the background. This may be an interesting picture as well, where you've got these big bright colors in the foreground, and then you see
Lots and lots of the yellow flowers in the background and their reflection in the water.
This is nice too, where you pan down and then you still see the reflection of these tentacles and then contrast it with this delicate green in the foreground. For some reason this also works quite well as a composition. Another focus shift here, you've got the delicate foreground, and then I'm going to focus on the background. And back to the foreground. So there you have it, a few of my tips on how to take pictures with your phone, how to film, how to do composition. Hope these were useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to end this video with this walking past the camera shot. And by now you know how these are made.